All right. I'm going to say something that's going to surprise a lot of you. College football in America is a big deal. I know. Take that in. The bottom line is, whether you are a fan of USC, you side with Alabama and you say roll tide after every sentence, there's a lot of things that people show their loyalty to plenty of college football teams. But what a lot of people don't know is where exactly are the players for these schools coming from, and how do they travel throughout this journey to get to the school? Now, of course, this will only be about the elite Division I athletes, but the college recruiting process is a lot longer than people think for football players, and a lot more difficult. And I'm going to break it down into 4 parts for you guys, so here we go. First, they actually have to play the game. Now, this seems kind of weird, but they have to be able to play the game well. They have to be good football players. They're obviously, if they're going to play at a Division I level, I mean, you have to be able to hang athletically and size-wise. And there's 3 things that coaches will look at when they are trying to find a Division I college football player. 1, there's great measurables. For example, there's a recruit this year named Josh Sweat, who since the 8th grade has been 6'3" and 225 pounds, and has run a sub 5-second 40. And his fastest 40 ever was clocked at 4 seconds. Like 4.4 seconds, which is ridiculous. That's running back speed, and he's a defensive end. Second, your family. I went to school with a family named the St. Browns. The oldest brother, Equinemius, is going to Notre Dame, and therefore his 2 little brothers, one is a freshman who has not even played a varsity snap, has 4 scholarship offers from Division I schools, because they see him as possibly being able to grow into what his brother is, and they jump on them early. And the third is exceptional talent, like Johnny Manziel. He was undersized. He was only 6'1" as a quarterback, but at high school he had 54 touchdown passes in high school in Texas. So scouts saw that, and a scout on Rivals set, all he put for Johnny Manziel's evaluation was wow, which was pretty incredible. Second, deeper into the evaluation process, the coaches will look at the film and evaluate talent. And there's things that a lot of coaches call immeasurables, or it's almost like intuition and the way players look and feel for the game. So you'll always hear it they'll always ask Nick Saban before or after a game. They'll be like, hey, what makes this guy so good? And they'll say, oh, the intangibles. I mean, he does all the right things. He's got a work ethic. He does this and that. And it's actually it's different, because people are like, what does that even mean? But when he's saying intangibles, he means things you can't see that the guy does well. So also, they assign a star rating to every recruit, 1 through 5. 5 being the top and 1 being the worst. So as I was saying, this is Josh Sweat. As you can see, he has a 5-star recruiting rating, and it has all of his measurables. This is a recruiting profile that ESPN puts together, and they use it. Coaches can look at this and use it to evaluate the player. All right. After they deem you worthy to play Division I football, the coaches go into what I call the wine and dine phase. They offer you a scholarship. They send you mail. They call you. They text you. They take you on they put you in these lavish trips and recruiting visits, and they put together videos like the one I'm going to show you that essentially make an 18-year-old, they are begging an 18-year-old to come play for them, which is interesting. This one's from the University of Clemson, and it's a recruiting video that their coach put together.
From generation to generation, the ooh of the crowd as the tackler meets his mark. The 110 10% commitment to be all in. The paralyzing joy that originates in a California desert. I'm where two Perrys, Kirkland, Dawkins, Spiller, and Nuke became immortals. I am the inevitable erosion of will.
Okay, as you see from the video, they name past players, they show you how awesome the University of Clemson is. They don't even, there's no basic information about where it is or what programs they have, but it looks like you would be a rock star if you went to Clemson. So after they've gone through the wine and dine phase and everything is clear to them where they want to go, here comes signing day, where the recruit is going to sign an NLI, or a National Letter of Intent, which by the committee, by definition, with the committee that has the same name, is, they say, it is a document used to indicate an athlete's decision where they're going to play their college football. So this has turned into a media frenzy in which people will go and they'll take hats and put them on their head, and that's where they're going to go to school. So I have an example of that right now. This is Adoree Jackson. He's a two-way star at USC right now, and he was recruited heavily last year. And there's no sound, so I'm going to narrate. Can't really hear what he's saying. But here's his box of things that he holds near to him. That's his water bottle for practice. That's a state championship ring from high school. That is a cleat. No, that was another ring. That's a hat from his high school. This is a cleat he got at the University of Florida on a recruiting visit. And then he commits to USC. So, in conclusion, we blow these guys up to be absolute rock stars. To go and to make it seem like all they're going to do is go and play football, and this is the end all be all. But I hope that through my speech you all have a better understanding of where these players come from and the process that it takes to get to a Division I college football program. Thank you. No. That goes mine.
All right, Brittany, what did you think?
Okay, so I thought you did overall together. I think that you are obviously very passionate about the sport itself. I didn't know what your central idea or thesis statement was in the beginning. I was really confused because you kept saying like, oh, they have to be a good player, and then they have to have exceptional talent, and that's kind of like the same point. It was just kind of confusing in the beginning. I think that what you needed to do was like, because you were saying like these points like, oh, he ran this fast, but like to somebody who doesn't know football, like I don't know what like the actual time should be. So I think that you should compare like what's good to what's like normal. You know what I mean? Or what's exceptional to what's normal. I thought your speech was a little too informal. You were like, oh, like you seemed more surprised by your points than like a lot of other people because you didn't really explain or compare them to what should be or what is the norm and what is exceptional. I thought your visuals were okay, but they didn't really explain the point that you were trying to make. Like when you was like bringing out the box and like showing what was like the end of it, you could have just showed that he pulled out and like accepted USC. Like I didn't know like why you were showing what he held dear to him. But like altogether, I thought you did pretty well about explaining like why it's a hard sport to be in, and like, but you didn't really explain where they came from in the beginning either, and how they got there. That's all.
All right. Well, I kind of agree with a lot of the things that Brittany just said, although there are a couple of things that I also appreciated that she hadn't emphasized. I like the little sarcasm as an attention device at the beginning. I thought that worked out fine, so we know what the topic area is. I do think that you could maybe give a little bit more explanation as to why this is something that we ought to be talking about. Yeah, it's a big deal, you know. Here's X amount of dollars and X amount of money, that sort of thing. When people are talking about a career down the road, like make the example of Johnny Manziel, that sort of thing. He's being evaluated by scouts in high school, you know, starting in the 10th grade. So, you know, when you're talking about being 14 or 15 and being evaluated by others, that's really when that process begins. And I think you needed to have a little bit more of that. You had the one example that you mentioned of the kid who in the 8th grade, I think it was, is, you know, they're already clocking his speed, they've already got him on a track for a scholarship, that sort of thing. When did this kind of thing start? How long has that been going on? I mean, obviously people have been recruiting and looking at high school players for a long time, but it seems odd to me that they started looking at them in the 7th and 8th grade kind of situation. That's got to be something that's occurred primarily because of technology that's gone on. You know, you didn't have the opportunity to see kids at middle schools because you wouldn't know about them any place. But now, because of widespread technology, the availability of information being so easily accessible, that's got to have kind of put those additional pressures on it. I'm thinking, you know, I got a college scholarship because my brother's a good football player and I have never played the game. What the hell? You know, does that can't work very well for the schools. There's got to be some payoff on that sort of thing. I understand why that happens, and you've got I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying, is that a typical sort of thing, or is that one of those things that is unique and unusual that's going on? So I often feel like you found a good example to talk about, but then we don't get much other explanation about that. How typical, how widespread, who's doing these kinds of things, where is the recruitment? Obviously, if you're talking at the most elite schools, you're talking about the top 20, 25 schools that are doing that kind of thing. They've got the time and the resources to do all that kind of stuff. Other places maybe don't have those sorts of things. You've got a structure, but your structure is only clear as you speak. At the beginning, you say, so I've got 4 things I want to talk about, and then you never tell us what those 4 things are going to be, except when they come up. So the first one, like Brittany said, it was like, sounded very certain. You got to be able to play the game, which means that you have to be able to play. You know, and you have to have certain abilities. You've got to prove it on the field. You have to have, like you talked about, skill sets that they're looking for. And apparently you don't have to be able to play the game, because if your brother played the game, they're going to get you. You know, that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of inconsistency on that information. I think you're interested in talking and kind of hyping this whole thing about what's going on, and you haven't always thought about what is it I'm trying to say about this particular point. And I think that needs to be a little bit clear. You know, then you get to the second point, the whining and dining thing, and basically you've got one thing. You don't tell us about the college, the visits from the recruiters. You don't tell us about a coach's visit. You don't tell us about the kids coming to the schools to see those kinds of things. What we get is this one video clip that you have that Clemson uses, and my guess is that that's a generic one. They didn't create it specifically for one recruit, although they might have. I don't know, but you know, it seems to me like it's a very generic piece of information. And you're right, it gives it like the voice of doom comes on. I mean, that guy's voice almost makes you laugh because of how serious it is. He's talking about that kind of thing. But they get everybody all hyped up and wanting you to do that sort of thing. I thought your analysis of the visuals was pretty good, of the video, especially that middle one, how it's being used. I know what she's talking about also about the Dory Jackson thing. We're just seeing the end point here. What was all the setup been? Who had he been recruited by? Why was there? You see all those people waiting there. So what was so spectacular about him in high school that everybody wanted him? And why are we getting this little personal history of the crap in the box, which is nice, if you like him and know him and he's sharing those kinds of things. But everybody's there really for the reveal, and he pulls out the hat and that sort of thing. To me, it seemed like one of those things that might have made more sense is to have a montage sort of thing of a bunch of kids putting on the hat to notice their selection, and that's become a big deal. And you just say, hey, here's a montage of this year's recruiting class doing this very thing, indicating the school that they want to go to. Although I do think that there was some blatant audience analysis appeal in choosing a Dory Jackson, right going on here, remembering who's in your audience. That's okay. All right, thank you.